Hi, you're watching Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Julie Haston. Thanks for tuning in. Right now we have Kathy Keeley, the Executive Director of All About Developmental Disabilities. And today our topic is the resources and services that they provide to the community, specifically helping families and individuals with disabilities with employment. So thank you so much, Kathy, for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Of course. I'm excited to learn about what you're doing and all the work that your organization does for our community. But before we get started into those specifics, could you tell us a little bit about the history of your organization?
Sure, our organization actually turned 60 this year.
Oh, wow.
We were started in the 50s. I know, it makes us the oldest disability organization in the state of Georgia.
Really?
So we were started by a group of parents, very upset because there was no public education available. Kids could not, like today, go to public school, get all the services. Special needs teachers didn't exist. So they bought buildings on pods, had 3 buildings, had 1,700 kids enrolled in school, came every day, and kept it until the mid-70s when the law changed, which the parents worked on, so that public education could be available.
Wow.
So we've always had this dual role since the 50s of advocacy, making a change that benefits everybody, and then providing direct services that are highly needed in the community.
Wow, wow. So what are some of those direct services provided?
So 3 things that we do. One is family support. So we support individuals and their families so they can live independent in the community. People live in their own apartments, they live with family. Our folks are from age 3 to 75, quite an age range, and they're in 5 counties. And then, so family support, we call it. We'll help people go to the doctor, we'll set up appointments, we'll grocery shop, we'll take food from the food bank, whatever they need to strengthen that independence and be stable. The second thing we do is employment, so we help people get jobs. We work with them, we call it discovery, to figure out what they're really good at, what skills they need, if they need a quiet environment, a loud environment, if they need accommodations of any kind. And then we go to employers and make a pitch for them to get a job. And then our third is advocacy. We're very active at the legislature. We're active in the community changing things. So last year we got a bill passed called ABLE, and it'll allow individuals to have savings accounts and not affect their benefits.
Wow.
So we're active,
Yeah.
doing lots of great things.
You really are, you really are. So could you tell me, let's go back to the family services. So how do families come and find you, and kind of what's the process of them starting out and working with you to help their loved ones?
So families generally find us through the internet, family and friends, listservs, social media. We have a very active Facebook site, and word of mouth. They just seem to tell each other. Because we start at age 3, and then they have to go through an application process, and we have to turn this into a regional office and get it approved by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability, mouthful. They approve it, and then we sign them up for services. We do something called an individual family service plan to figure out what the family's goals are, what they want, and then our job is to staff and work with them to accomplish those goals. So some people, for instance, want their child to participate in art classes and swimming classes in the community. So we're going to go set those up, we'll pick them up, take them, participate. Others face really tough problems because of poverty. So they're homeless. We're going to look for housing, get them in a shelter, we're going to get food, we're going to take care of all the basics. Several have medical problems, we have many. We have 3 right now that are in hospice, and so we help get hospice, we help set it up, we help go to the home, we're helping the family understand and deal with death.
Wow.
So the whole gamut of services. It depends on the family.
Right. So when a family comes in, there's a lot of variety of different types of family, different socioeconomic statuses. But what would you say is a very, very common goal with one family that comes to you and says, we need your help?
I think the most common goal is that they want to see their child live to their potential and have a meaningful life. They want to see that, and there's a whole range of disabilities. So for some children, the goal can be tying their shoe. For others, we have somebody we're working with to learn how to use a microwave, because that's a really hard thing for him to figure out and do all the pieces of. For some, it's getting a job. For some, it is, okay, by the time they're 30, I'd like them to live independent. And they might be 10, but they want to work long term towards that goal. Others, it could be dealing with medical issues. So autism is one of the things we work with. And those on the autism spectrum, we're finding as they age, other things develop. We're seeing bipolar, mental health issues, we're seeing behavioral issues, more depression. So what was sort of good at 10 isn't going to work at 21 or 22, and we have to change and work with that and get other services.
Wow.
It changes every day.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, you grow with them. You grow with the family.
Exactly.
That's really great. So before we get into more of the services that you provide specifically for employment, could you define what exactly is a developmental disability?
Sure. So a developmental disability has actually a federal definition and probably a state one and who knows what else. But anyway,
Right.
It has to be diagnosed before age 22. So they call it developmental period. And it has to involve one of two other things, either a cognitive and intellectual disability, a lower IQ, or behavioral issues that they life functioning, they can't do the same things you and I potentially could do. So those issues combine to find the developmental disability. So it's autism, spina bifida, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, all of those kinds of things that are usually diagnosed in childhood that would make a developmental disability.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So now I'd like to ask you, what is the unemployment rate for individuals with a disability, and why is it so high?
So the unemployment rate is actually 89%. It's huge.
Wow.
Yeah. We have the fewest number in the state of Georgia employed than we've had in a long time. So hit hard by the recession, haven't recovered like other groups have in the recession. And it's hard to find a job without supports. And a lot of employers need information, sometimes training, but more often they just need somebody will work with them kind of hand in hand to make sure the person's trained, understands what to do, and that they, the supervisor, whoever's supervising the individual, also knows how to work with the person.
That's good. So how do you prep the supervisor or the business that the individual comes to and wants to work with?
So in the business, we're first going to meet with them to see what the job is, what the expectations are, what the productivity is, what has to work in their environment. We're going to ask a lot of questions about, you work in a very quiet environment. There are other environments that are very noisy. So we're going to figure out accommodations. Can they change the desk size, or is that too much of a problem? Can they, it's not much. Can they so we have a number of people working at certain restaurants. They sort and wrap silverware. So would they let us put in pictures of each step? Because the person is nonverbal, the person has a very low IQ, so telling them, standing over as a supervisor and saying, okay, you wrap the silverware this way, isn't going to work. They need a picture. They'll follow it perfectly. They won't deviate, and they'll do the work. But is that okay? Do we have a place to set that up? So, and then with the supervisor, say the person doesn't show up, the person's late, the person seems to have a bad attitude. They get to call us, and we'll figure out what the problem is. We'll work with them, and then we'll come in and meet jointly with the supervisor and the individual to problem solve and make sure that that bad attitude or whatever behavior is going on changes so that the employer, again, gets a good employee.
Wow, wow. So it's beneficial for both parties.
Yeah.
There's really help.
There are a lot of benefits to the employers, and we're seeing, particularly in this market, there's somewhat of a labor shortage, there are more groups. One of my favorite stories is we have individuals working in a hospital, and they're in a surgical ward, and you have to be very precise when you build the surgical carts, put all those instruments in the right places. So we have people that are extremely OCD. They have to do a regime every time, same way, same thing. They're getting like 97% approval ratings and quality ratings because they put all the instruments in the right place every time the same way. So you never know what job's going to work and what will benefit somebody, but you got to try.
Wow. So finding out, earlier you said that they take sort of an evaluation to kind of find out where they would best be placed, or what type of business it is or anything. Could you take us through that process?
So we call it discovery, and it takes, parents are often surprised, but it can take a good 40 hours to do discovery. We are going to interview, obviously, but we're going to take them to various environments. We're going to take them to a pet shop. Do they like animals? No, scared to death. Okay, we're going to take them to a grocery store and say, okay, find these 10 things. Can they do that? Maybe inventory is a potential thing. We'll go retail. We'll try lots of different environments. We'll try a very quiet environment. Do they thrive in that? We'll go to a very noisy restaurant where, you know, all the bustling noise. Do they like that or not? We'll go to church with them and see, okay, do they interact, or are they in the back by themselves, or do they refuse to go in and talk to people? So we're going to discover what makes them happy, comfortable, skilled, and passionate, so they want to get up every day like you and I and go to work. Yeah.
No, that's really, really great. So you cater to kind of their loves and their dislikes, and just making sure that they're comfortable and find their best fit.
And yeah, because with a best fit, that's good for the employer. and they're going to get a employee that stays happy, productive.
That's wonderful. So with some logistics about your organization itself, so is there, I'm sorry, not your organization, but with the state. So I understand that there's a long waiting list for state-funded services in Georgia.
9,000 people are on
wow.
the waiting list.
Wow. And exactly what are they waiting for? Services, that's something that you provide?
Yeah,
like that?
so like
Okay.
employment. They want their child to be employed. They want to go through that discovery.
Right.
Somebody has to pay for that.
Right.
And we do private pay. Some parents will pay. Most can't afford it. So they're waiting to be approved by the state.
Right.
So they could be on the waiting list right now 9 to 12 years. Wow. So 22, they age out of school. They're on a list for 9 years. Now they're 31. They sit at home the whole time doing nothing or playing computer games. So they lose everything they've gained in this school area. So we're working very hard to try and figure out, okay, how do we deal with that list? And how do we capture young adults coming right out of high school and get them into productive things so they don't sit around for 12 years waiting to get picked up with a waiver.
Right. So when your organization comes in, are you finding that it's kind of easier to get families connected more quickly or anything like that?
No, it's really hard.
It really is? Okay.
Yeah, our system in Georgia is tough. It's hard for families. There's a lot of stress and there's a lot of waiting with kind of filling out applications and waiting to hear.
Right, right. So let's talk about, you know, life transitioning now. Like you said, you know, them kind of, they may need to have different needs when they're 10 than when they're 30 and then have this gap in between. But what are some of the most important life transitions for individuals with disabilities? What would you say to that?
So there are three. One is at age 3. You got to enter the school system and start that. The next one is you leave the school system at 22. By law, you can stay until 22 instead of 18 with a disability. And then the third one, which nobody's really talking about, is we have 21,000 aging baby boomers that have adult children living at home with them. Those parents are going to die and have no plan for those children and who's going to take care of them. We have the first generation of individuals with disabilities outliving their parents.
Wow.
And so we're trying to figure out, all right, what's that going to look like? So there's 3. That aging is one. That's a new one for all of us because people with disabilities used to die younger and they did not live their parents.
Wow. So how is your organization finding a solution to that?
We are actually put together a task force on aging. We have people developing recommendations for our board of directors. We're looking at, we have a trust, special needs trust that we have, and people can set up a trust and have money to protect their kids. We are looking at providing family supports to individuals after their parents die.
Well, Kathy, thank you so much for sharing with us today about
Thank you.
all about developmental disabilities does for our community and for families around our state. And you can reach them at www.aadd.org. And this has been Kathy Keeley, the Executive Director of AADD, and thank you for watching Joy in Our Town.